Welcome to Let's Talk About It. Broadcasting live from North Nashville, Tennessee. North Nashville spans from Metro Center down to the border of Bicentennial Mall, including the neighborhoods of Bordeaux, Buena Vista, Parkwood Estates, Germantown, Haynes Manor, Jefferson Street, Fisk Park, Cumberland Gardens, Oak Valley, Enchanted Hill, and many others. It's perhaps best known for the 3 universities housed here, including Tennessee State University, Fisk University, and Meharry Medical College. North Nashville is also home to the Tennessee Titans practice facility. The Tennessee Titans will begin construction on an expansion project at St. Thomas Sports Park, which will almost double its current footprint in Nashville's Metro Center neighborhood. The plan includes 60,000 square feet in additions, including a new building situated along one of the practice fields, and major renovation of spaces within the existing 75,000 square foot building.
Now live from North Nashville, Dr. William Head. Let's talk about it.
Are you aware of the untold stories behind the headlines? Our platform, Palestine, Listen to Cherie Ann Booker, offers exclusive interviews that delve deep into the daily struggles and resilience of the Palestinian people. By tuning in, you'll gain a profound understanding and personal connection to their journey, inspiring empathy and action. Join us in giving a voice to those who deserve to be heard. Subscribe today and be part of the change. Cherie Ann Booker, a devoted member of Metropolitan Interdenominational Church in Nashville, Tennessee. Guided by her faith, she embarked on a transformative visit to Palestine, capturing powerful stories and images that reveal the struggles faced by Palestinians today. Join us to explore her compelling photographs and hear her heartfelt interview with Dr. William Head. Gain a deeper understanding of the resilience and challenges experienced by these communities, and be inspired to engage with their narrative on a meaningful level. These photos are of a family that is struggling to keep their land. Settlers, Jewish people from the U.S., Canada, and Europe primarily, are allowed to move to Israel as Palestine and settle on any Palestinian land they choose. This has happened to the family pictured, but they have refused to leave their land. The land in the background has been in their family for more than 300 years, and they have no support from the Israeli government. This gentleman, standing in front of the rubble, shared the story of his home being demolished by the Israeli government. His family also has lived on this land for over 200 years. His grandchildren are playing in front of the demolished house. The state of Israel plans to demolish all the homes in this Palestinian community to build a theme park they will call the City of David. They are not purchasing the land or compensating the people in any other way. They are not even providing them with alternative housing. Olives and olive oil are essential to the economic well-being of Palestinians. Pictured here is an olive farmer who is fighting in the courts to keep his land that has been in his family for many generations. We visited him at his farm and helped harvest olives. Israeli settlers often attack Palestinians during olive harvesting season to stop them from harvesting their olives. They also bulldoze their olive groves to destroy their source of income. Having lunch in the hills of Hebron at the home of a Palestinian nonviolent freedom fighter and activist. We were joined by another group. His home was surrounded by illegal Israeli settlements, as seen in the other photo. A Palestinian father tells us the story of his home being stormed into in the middle of the night, his 2 older sons being violently attacked, beaten, and detained by the Israeli police without being charged. They were held without charge, one for 6+ months and the other for more than a year before being released. While in detention, they were brutally tortured. These photos show where settlers displaced Palestinians in the old city of Hebron, built on top of the Palestinian homes, and proceeded to throw trash, including human excrement, on top of the homes of the Palestinians who did not leave. Illegal settlements are communities built on Palestinian lands by Jews that moved to Israel, Palestine, displace the Palestinian people by force, and take over their property, leaving them without places to live. While this is sanctioned by the Israeli government and the settlers are protected, it is a violation of international law. And now, join us in our interview with Dr. William Head and Cherie Ann Booker.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special edition of Let's Talk About It on NorthNashvilleTV.com. Today we're talking to Reverend Cherie Booker, my favorite lady. She is so soft-spoken, but her messages are very, very profound. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. This is the second time that we've talked together on camera. The first time was when you were preparing to go to Gaza. So this is the second. Would you start out by giving the audience as long as you want to make it, an explanation, a description, a reason why you were going to such a remote and dangerous place?
Okay. First of all, let me correct you. I wasn't going to Gaza. I was going to Palestine.
Okay.
And Gaza is a part of Palestine.
Okay.
And so the reason I was going is because of what happened on October 7th and the impact it had on me. It impacted me profoundly. I experienced a tremendous amount of grief over not just October 7th, but what happened in the days following. And I felt very strongly that I needed to do something, but also felt very impotent about, in that regard, because what do you do with something like that? How do you make some sort of prayer that felt like it was what you needed to do more than just your normal praying? They
Something
always say,
adequate to fit the situation.
to fit the situation. And so I really just went into a state of meditation and could not shake it. As I said, there was a lot. I felt a lot of grief, very deep grief. The grief at the level of what I felt when I lost my daughter. And so I, as Advent came around, I was exposed to origami peace doves, and so I decided that's something I can do. When things like this happen, at least for me, it's really hard to find the words to describe what you're being called to and what you're feeling and why you're feeling what you're feeling. And so when I saw a group of people making these peace doves, I decided, that's something I can do. And so during Advent, I made a peace dove every day. And I decided I would not put up a Christmas tree. I would put my doves on a tree and have a peace tree. And Advent, we went through Advent, we went through Christmas, Epiphany came, and there was no peace. And so I kept the peace tree up. And then just at the end of that, of January, another thing came to my attention, and that was a film called Where Olive Trees Weep. And when I saw the film and I saw the devastation of what the Israelis were doing to the Palestinian people, and this was before the war. This film, this was not the war. I don't want to call it a war, because it's not. This was before the devastating attack on Israel and their response to that attack. The film was made in 2022. But in 2022, of course, they had been, for many years before 22, they had been displacing the Palestinian people from their lands, settlers, many of whom are Americans and Canadians, were displacing them from their lands and demolishing their homes, and worst of all, bulldozing their olive groves. Trees that are hundreds of years old. They were bulldozing them to destroy any economy that the Palestinian people could have to live. And that really touched me. And so, but again, I think all of that was preparation for God knowing that God was going to send me to Palestine. At the end of that, there was 21-day discussions went on, and then on the last day of the discussions, Naomi Tutu, who is a friend of mine, and she called and we chatted, and then she invited me. She told me she was going to Palestine out of nowhere, and she had no idea I was going through what I was going through.
You mentioned that she asked you,
yes,
if you had plans to visit.
To come visit her in Atlanta. And I said, no, I don't have any plans to come visit you. Are you going to be there for the summer? And she said, well, I'm going to Palestine. And I was like, wow, and then she said, do you want to come? And that was the invitation. And so it fell into place. It was clear to me that this was how God was speaking to me. And so I said yes, and I went. We first were supposed to go in August. Flight got canceled, and I went through a whole lot about whether or not I was supposed to go. I was like, did I hear right? But then we rescheduled the trip, because most of the people who were going were very determined to go and felt called. We were a group of black leaders, black church leaders, Christian leaders, and we were invited by an organization in Palestine called Sabil, which is an Arabic word that means water, and it also means the way. And so with all of those synchronicities, I guess, if you would say, what did Jesus say? He came to show us
the way.
The way. And so with all of those synchronicities, I just knew. I didn't have a choice.
You were in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I don't want to belabor this point, but you talked about the grief that you had felt that was close to the grief that you felt in the loss of your child.
Yeah.
Of course, she was a child in this church,
right.
Metropolitan Interdenominational
right.
Church. And she and my son are about the same age.
Mm-hmm.
And they were friends.
Mm-hmm.
So her loss was a loss for all of us. But you now have flown out of Nashville to New York
Right.
after all the shots and preparations and passports and paperwork.
Right.
You are all set to jump on a plane to Palestine or Jordan.
Well, we were
as you
going
say.
to Jordan initially.
Right.
Yes, we were going to Jordan. Well, we were going through Jordan because we didn't want to go through Tel Aviv.
Okay.
And so our flight was, we were flying on we weren't going on Jordanian. We were going on U.S. Air from Nashville to Washington, Washington to Jordan. And then we would take land transportation across the border from Jordan into Palestine. Yeah.
Now, when you talk about crossing borders in this country, you go from Georgia to Tennessee,
Yes.
Tennessee to North Carolina. When you cross borders in that
In the Middle
area
East,
of the worst
you go
world,
from one country to another. And in going into Palestine, I keep saying Palestine because it's my politics.
oh no, go right ahead.
Everything is controlled by Israel. So you have to cross the border. You're actually going into land that is Palestine, but it's all controlled by Israel. So as soon as you get to the process is just many steps. But the interesting thing was once we got off our bus and got our luggage and all of that stuff, and they search you just like if you're going into the airport to catch a flight. You go through security things and take off your belt and all that kind of stuff. But we got there, and once we got to that point, they before we got there, they took all our passports from us on the bus, and then someone came on, one of the officials from the state of Israel came on the bus, collected our passports, and they gave them back to us after we went through their security system.
Excuse me.
On the other side. Yeah, but they once you get there, you realize that you're in a segregated country, right at the border, because there's a line that you go into if you're Palestinian, and then there's another line for everybody else. And so we went through the line for everybody else, of course.
So Palestinians have difficulty
Oh, yes.
going back into their own country.
Yes. And leaving it. Yeah. And when I say I'm leaving it, all of the paperwork and the searching and the passes, they have passes. When they fly out of the Middle East, they can't fly out of Tel Aviv. If they want to leave the Middle East, they must go to Jordan. And the story that is told is that we're going to Jordan. And it's from Jordan that they can actually leave the Middle East.
Okay. So that means anybody anywhere in that region of the country has to go across country to get to Jordan.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
Now, as you get to wherever your first stop is, tell us about getting off the bus in an area that you've never been, know absolutely nothing about, and have no feel for what's coming.
Yeah. It's the first place we get to. I say before I go there, it was a beautiful ride from our hotel in Jordan, in Amman, Jordan, to the border. We went through land where we could see the Dead Sea. We crossed the River Jordan. We saw a few Bedouins, and very rugged land. Once we got into Palestine, Israel, and we got off the bus at our hotel, we stayed in East Jerusalem, which is supposed to be the Palestinian sector of Jerusalem. But of course it's not run by the Palestinians, it's run by the Israelis. It was a, how should I put it? kind of a surreal experience, because on the one hand, many of us are feeling the disconnect between coming into what's called the Holy Land.
The Holy Land.
And the violence
that's going on
there. And how militarized it is. There are Israeli military and police everywhere in the city. We stayed within walking distance of the old city of Jerusalem, the walled city. And so within the walls of Jerusalem, as well as around the city, there's just a lot of military presence. And they have all of them that I saw out there were very young. They were young people, at best in their 20s. And some of them looked like they were teenagers. But in Israel, there is a law that they must serve in the military, so from the age of 18, they are conscripted into the military. And so it's a lot of young people that they are continuing to brainwash into the notion that Palestinians are not real people. So there was that sense of the disconnect of fighting and killing and oppressing people in a very open way. It's not like it's abnormal.
They're not trying to hide it.
No, it's not at all. Even though we see a lot of brutalization of black people, brown people in this country, it's not sanctioned openly. At least there's the pretense here that this is wrong, and the state responds to the people's protest against those things. In some way, it might be a fake court trial or whatever, but at least there's that sense that, okay, we've crossed a line.
There is some recompense
Yeah.
for what you did, what you've done.
Yeah, or at least you have to face it. But there, it's not so if it's happening to a Palestinian. So any settler, whether they are actual police or not, can harm native Palestinians.
Say that
and
again.
The police. Yeah, any settler, and these are the people that come from wherever they come from to live in Israel because they are Jewish and they have almost automatic citizenship there. It takes a matter of months for them to get their citizenship papers. As long as they can prove they're Jewish, they can do that. And so any of them, literally, can decide, this is where I want to live, and it's a Palestinian person's home. And they can move in and move the family out by force. And if the family calls the police does come, but they come to protect the settler. They come to protect the person who is taking someone else's property.
Now that one, when you said it the other day in your remarks at church, struck me deeply, given in this country there are ways and means seemingly where that can be done legally here. But it cannot be a violent takeover. It has to be robbery at paper point.
Yes.
They're not shooting, not holding a gun on you. They got a piece of paper that they're pointing you out of your property.
And that's happening there as well.
One of the things she said Sunday again was about the presence of firearms and force and threat and feelings of they could shoot us just anytime they want to.
And they do. That's the thing. They do. When they are making, again, because firearms are just, the settlers come in and they either bring their firearms with them or they get their firearms there. And it's under the guise of they need to be protected from the Palestinians.
And the Palestinians got rocks. And
they've got
rockets.
rocks. Exactly. And I don't want to say Palestinians are nonviolent people. You can't make those kinds of statements, blanket statements. But those that we met are committed to nonviolent struggle. And yet, one gentleman who we met with his family told the story. They keep giving them, they will give them notice to get off their property. And if they don't get off their property, they will come and bulldoze it. And so this gentleman was telling the story of this was like the second time. They have a word called samud, and it means steadfast. They will not relent. And so each time they had bulldozed his property before, he would build it back. And so this time they decided they were going to come build it. They came and told him that they were going to come and bulldoze it. And he said something to them about, well, it's February 14th, it's Valentine's Day. How could you come and bulldoze on Valentine's Day? That was going to be the next day. And he said, they told him, okay, we won't come on Valentine's Day. We will come the following day.
Wow.
But at 8 o'clock in the morning on Valentine's Day, they came and bulldozed his home. He said that's how they should, without warning. And that's how he said. And the thing about the Palestinians, they're so funny because he said, that's how they decided to show me love on Valentine's Day. They bulldozed my home. And this is a man who his family had been there for 200-300 years. And when we went to visit him, we saw the bulldozed house, but right next to the bulldozed house, he built another temporary shelter for him and his family.
So these are people in their own land who have no home.
Who have no home.
And they're at home. It's their land.
It's their land. They've been there for many, many generations. One of the women we met when we were there had been just moved off of her land, and she and her mother refused to allow them to. So she's got international recognition in terms of people all over the world knowing about this her struggle. Beautiful piece of land. You look out onto it and it's just absolutely beautiful. The settlers came and they built on it. They chased her off. So she's now across the street. So I can't tell about acres, but huge piece of land. And so she's now in a temporary shelter across the street from where her land begins. And she has put up a tent at an entrance point to her land. And she stays in that tent. And she just got arrested since we left. And the arrest.
So she owns land on this side of the street.
She owns.
That has been confiscated.
Confiscated, yeah.
And she's got a tent on the opposite side of
Right.
street, path,
Right.
whatever, in her country
In her country, yeah,
by someone
Right.
from heaven knows where.
yeah. Who knows, yeah.
You spoke of some young people, children basically, that you encountered.
Yes, the kids in Hebron. Yeah, we were in Hebron trying to visit the old city. And when we got there, you have to go through a checkpoint. And it's like, you know, those big turnstile kinds of, you know, and they have the cameras and some kind of stun gun pointing at you.
Wow.
And there's guards on the other side that have
With attack weapons.
Oh yes, with their big guns, their AK-47s, I think is what they're called. And so we got there early, and when I say early, it was probably about 9 in the morning, and we all got off of our bus and we lined up to go to the checkpoint. Our guide went in front of us, called out. They came out, one person came out, and he told them, you know, we have these Americans coming to visit, and they would like to see the old city. And apparently the guard told him he will have to check with his supervisor. So he left and went wherever he went, because we couldn't really see. And we were just there waiting. And we waited, and we waited. About 20 minutes or so after, the guide called out again, and are you going to let us in? And he said, no. And apparently the guide, as you said, he said, now, is that your final answer? And they said yes. So we had to turn around and walk into a different direction. So as we were walking through this other part of the city, and I mean city is kind of a big word for it's really more of a kind of village town type thing. You know, kids, they're curious and they see strangers and they want to practice their English and so forth. So they're chatting with us, and the guide is telling us about this particular part of the town of Hebron where settlers came and moved the people out of their homes and took over their homes and built on top of that, on top of their homes. So what was once a one-story building became a 2- and 3-story building. And so because it's all cramped space, so so on this side of the road or the path, they took over and built. But on this side, there were still Palestinian homes that were just the 1-story, just like the others used to be. And it's a busy path where there's shops and vendors and so forth. And the settlers would throw trash down onto the path and onto the Palestinian merchants and so forth. They would throw all kinds of, including excrement, human excrement, they would throw on them. And so the Palestinians
You say
put-
this is the Holy Land?
this is the Holy Land. Yes, this is the Holy Land.
You may not
And
want to
these
be
are the
too holy.
and these are the chosen people of God.
Ah,
These are the chosen people of God. That's what they call themselves.
so you're burning your bridge as you're crossing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, and so the Palestinians, to protect themselves, they put up these tarps to keep the stuff from coming on, and then they also put up barbed wire and so forth to keep the settlers themselves from coming out and into their space.
Mm.
And so that didn't stop them from throwing the trash. They didn't bring their bodies out, but they still threw the trash. So it was just a mess, a real mess.
So
yeah.
now there's someone who lives across the path, whose home is higher than yours,
Right.
who comes out on a balcony or on the roof and throws
their
everything, including human excrement, on you,
On you
and
your
yours.
property and your. Yep.
Now
And they're armed.
yes. So there's not much retaliation you're
that
going
you
to
can
be able to do.
All you can do is try to protect yourself by putting up these kinds of barriers when they're not around. So yeah, and so the kids were, you know, we were just chatting with the kids and looking and talking about how, you know, how horrible it was what they were doing, and then we heard voices up above, and the kids took off. And so we were like, when we looked up, there was a man up there with a gun pointed down at us.
Not
Yeah.
military people, just
No, this was a
random
settler.
men.
A settler, yeah, with a gun pointed down at us. Needless to say, we left the area. He didn't shoot it, and he didn't say anything to us. Whatever he said the children must have understood when they ran. We just heard the voice. And so we left and met up with the kids on the other side and, you know, asked them, well, what was going on? What? And they said, we ran because we didn't want to get shot today.
today.
You know, and the thing is, like, who wants to get shot any day? You know, but it's such a daily reality for these children. And they were truly children. I don't think any of them were more than 10 years old.
Was this, of course, we know it's not necessary.
It's absolutely unnecessary. They weren't causing any harm. They probably didn't like the fact that we were there taking pictures of what they do.
Oh, you took pictures.
We took pictures, yes.
Oh, we've got to have some of
Yes.
those so
Yeah,
we can
I'll
include
share
it
it
in
with
this
you.
interview.
Yeah, I'll share them with you. Yeah, so we took pictures, and that's another thing that's very, is very dangerous to do. So you're forbidden from taking pictures of any police or military people. They will come and take your camera or your phone and erase anything you put on. On the way out of Palestine, Israel, one member of our group was pulled aside. They took his phone. They held him for probably about 30, 45 minutes, interrogating him about why he was there. And
So he was an American citizen?
he's an American citizen.
I think he has all the right in the world to complain.
Yeah, and so but not only did they pull him aside and interrogate him, but they took his phone. They left him in the room. They came out of the room with his phone, and there were 2 or 3 of them that were trying to do something with his phone, and I don't know much about technology, so but they went back and asked him what pictures he took, made him show them the pictures, and they made him erase pictures that he had on his phone before they let him out to join the rest of us. So they're very.
So the U.S. government is culpable.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because they know these things are going on, and they're paying for a lot of it.
South Africa was like it was for 60 or 70 years, and everybody in the world knew it was. So until something else happens in this country that changes how we approach Israel, that is probably going to be an issue. I have a question completely off the trip, but how is it that Jews are hated so badly here in this country, but yet we finance and support a non-existent war against a people in their own land? But that's just a rhetorical question, because it's probably not something we can answer.
Yeah, I can't answer that. But my part of my imagination about Israel is that for whatever reason the Jews were persecuted and, as you say, hated in Europe, and the Holocaust happened as a result of that and many other issues. And I think there was some level of guilt, if you will, responsibility on the part of the Allies to say we need to support them. So they ended up in Palestine because that's where they wanted to go, and it happened to be at the time colonized by the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom and the United States are allies.
And France.
And France, and exactly, all of those people. And so they took the Palestinians' land and said, this is ours to give to the Jews of Europe.
Sounds like a replay of European advance in North America.
Absolutely. It's exactly the same. Settler colonialism.
And then claiming that they massacred some white settlers because we talked to a gentleman of Native American descent the other day, and talked a little bit about the perception developed through media and how it affected people's perception of the problems that Native Americans have in this country. And as you look at Palestine and you see the same level of disdain for anything near justice, remotely near justice, it's the same mix and batter all over again.
Yeah. They have perfected it in Israel. They have definitely perfected the apartheid system. They have perfected oppression. It's like, so we were visiting, where were we? I think we were in Ramallah. And we went to see a Bedouin family. Now the Bedouins, they were the sheep herders and, that agricultural people. And so they live in very simple structures, sometimes they're in caves, and sometimes they have like these tents, tarp tents, and I mean they have a very simple life. But the settlers came in and took over their land, and they always take the land that's above. So they take the hill country, so they can look down on, see what they want.
Matter of perspective.
Right. So they came in and they quote unquote developed on these people's land, and as we were visiting, they built a road right through the Bedouin community up to, so that they can get up to their land on the hill, and then they gated that road. So the Bedouins can't go up there, but they can come down and go in and out across the Bedouins' property. And I call it the level of just total meanness and inhumanity. They ran electricity to their place, to their community, and then they took the Bedouins' grazing land on the other side and started a chicken farm. And so they ran the electricity from their community to the chicken farm across the Bedouins' land, and the Bedouins cannot get an inch of that electricity. They have to have, they create their electricity with solar panels, but of course, you can't run but so much on these little panels that they have. But that's how, the Israelis have access to 90% of the water. They do not they ration water to the Palestinians. So they get water on a regular, most of the, I guess I have to say at the whim, really, of the state. They're supposed to get water once a week.
So you're supposed to have enough facility to carry enough water for a week?
For a week. And sometimes it's 2 weeks, because they don't abide by whatever they say they're doing for the Palestinians. So they have diverted all of the water sources. There's plenty of water, but they have diverted all of the water surface, the water to the settlers, to the settlements. And so there's about 10% of it left that the Palestinians can actually access. But often to access it, you have to cross over into Israeli territory, and
which means you go through a checkpoint.
A checkpoint.
Guns pointed at you.
Exactly. And so the Palestinian people, their homes, you can know that almost you could know a Palestinian home because you'll see a big white tank on top.
Water.
That's where they collect the water. And one of the first things that they do when they come to demolish a Palestinian home is they knock down the water tank and spill all the water. Just really I call it mean-spirited. There could probably be much better words to describe it.
I've got some that would fit it very well, but I would not mention them on the air. In summing up your travel to the Holy Land, which seems now to be unholy, give us a feeling that you have about where this thing might go, whether or not the world is just going to stand by and watch the Palestinians be subjected to what they're being subjected to now.
Yeah. I, often, not all, but most of the families that we met with and we talked with, we would ask before we leave, what can we do? And all they would ask of us is, go back and tell our story. Tell the world, let the world know. Don't forget us. Things like that is what they would say. One said, we don't need people to come here to try to save us because the problem is not here. The problem is where you live. So go back and tell the people. They were very encouraged that the students were protesting the tent cities and things like that. So they are very, as I said, they're very steadfast. But one of the painful things was that Palestinians have begun now, some of them, to demolish their own homes so that the state doesn't have the satisfaction of doing it to them. That's pretty bad.
That is awful. It's bad that
when
they feel
get
that they need to do that.
That they need to do that because they will get sometimes they will get it's not, they don't call it an eviction notice. It's probably a demolition notice or something that it's called. They will get a notice that their house is going to be demolished or it's slated for demolition, and they don't really know when the demolition is going to take place.
We're coming, but we're not going to tell you when.
Right. And so some of them have started doing that. So, in terms of, I shared about the sheikh of the mosque when I asked him about, how is he, how do you keep going? How do you find hope? And he said, we are people of faith. He said, we are people of faith, and this is not going to last. One woman said, the earth, they're going to take our land, and the earth is going to spit them out. So they're very steadfast about, their right, if you will, to be there.
Their dependence upon their faith.
Yes. Yeah, very steadfast on that, So, and I agree with them. My mom, not so much my mom, but I had an aunt, my mom's sister, who when people did mean-spirited things, she would say, God don't like ugly.
God don't like ugly.
And that's how I feel about it. It can't continue. I mean, the level of, and I think that people around the world have to begin to let their voices be heard. We are the ones to push our governments, the Americans, the Canadians, the British, the French, and not just Palestine, Congo, Sudan, all of the places around the world where that is making our lives, our lifestyles possible. Most of us don't even know about how we use these, how we get these cell phones that we pay all this money for. And the very basic material in that cell phone, those people are not being paid anything. Children are digging it out with their hands.
So, God don't like ugly.
God don't like ugly.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have just had a conversation with the Reverend Sherry Booker about her travel and experiences in the Holy Land, or maybe we should say the unholy land. You have been listening to and looking at NorthNashvilleTV.com, the home of the voiceless.